My husband, a man who couldn't be bothered to remember our anniversary, suddenly developed a romantic streak for my birthday. Along with a bouquet of funeral white carnations, he sent a hotel address. My heart raced. I actually wore the lace lingerie I'd been too shy to show him and hid in the hotel closet, trembling with a mix of nerves and excitement for the surprise he promised. But the surprise turned out to be a nightmare. Through the crack in the door, I saw the rhythmic, sickening slap of skin on skin, the poor student I'd been sponsor. She was riding Sebastian Sinclair. Her hair was flying, moaning my husband's name. "Mr. Sinclair," Vivian gasped, her voice dripping with malice. 3 years, and that pathetic old hag still thinks you're a saint. I sent her those carnations today. Don't they just scream dead marriage? Sebastian's eyes darkened, his hands gripping her hips with a violence I'd never felt. "Don't mention her," he grunted. "You're the one I spend every real holiday with. To me, she's just a walking womb, a child for show. Then I'm done with her. I haven't laid a finger on her in years. You're the only one who tastes this good." Vivian leaned down, her lips brushing his ear while her eyes locked onto the closet door, directly at me. "Oh, Sebastian. I didn't just send the flowers," she whispered, a cruel, triumphant smirk spreading across her face. "And I told her to come to the hotel. Maybe she's seen everything." Sebastian's movement stopped abruptly, and he followed Vivian's gaze. He quickly pulled out, but the next second, he froze in place. After hesitating for a long time, he tremblingly opened the closet and suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. Vivian muttered and got up, wrapping her arms around Sebastian from behind, softly kissing the knife scar on his back. "Just teasing you. I know you treasure that old hag. When you were young, you'd gladly trade your life for hers. I know what your bottom line is." After saying that, she flashed a triumphant smile toward the closet where I was hiding. I clamped a hand over my mouth to stifle a sob loud, just as Vivian said, "When I was young, my dad owed too much debt and we were hiding everywhere. It was my neighbor Sebastian who took me in and even protected me with his frail body when the debt collectors came to the door. That debt collector used all his strength, cutting down to the bone." Although Sebastian groaned in pain, his back instantly soaked with gushing blood, he fiercely shielded me behind him, like a wolf guarding his territory. The debt collector was frightened by the determination in his eyes, afraid of actually killing someone, and had to flee in panic. Only after confirming the debt collectors had left did Sebastian dare to pass out. He used to cherish me like I was his whole world. How could I ever suspect him of cheating? Sebastian rubbed his temples, turned around, and tackled Vivian again. "As long as you know. As long as this doesn't get to Vanessa Winslow, I'll let you have whatever you want. Tell me, what else do you want for International Women's Day? Is that sapphire necklace not enough?" My heart stopped. That sapphire necklace was originally meant to be my birthday present, but that day, Sebastian told me with an apologetic face that someone else had won the bid for the necklace. I even comforted him, saying it didn't matter. Looking at it now, the person who should be comforted is me. Vivian hooked her arms around his neck coquettishly. That necklace was meant for her, and I made sure I got it instead. "I want something you give me personally. How about we do it, and you call her to wish her a happy holiday?" Sebastian's eyes darkened, a bit hesitant, but unable to resist Vivian's whining. He thought about it again and made the call. I fumbled to mute my phone, but then couldn't move. As much as I used to look forward to Sebastian's calls, that's how much I feared them now. Large drops of tears smashed onto the screen, and at the last second before Sebastian was about to hang up, I used all my strength to tremblingly put on my earphones, and like a zombie, I hit the answer. "Hey, babe, what are you up to? Do you like the carnations I sent? Happy birthday, sweetie." Vivian's shy, moaning voice traveled through the earphones to my eardrums, like a serrated blade tearing through my chest, ignoring the countless crescent nail marks clenching my fists until my nails drew blood. I suppressed my trembling and forced out a few words. "WH, why is there a woman's voice beside you?" Sebastian froze for a second, then slipping back into his usual casual tone, his lower body continuing to thrust relentlessly. At the moment of climax, He bit down hard on Vivian's shoulder. He let out a sigh of deep satisfaction. It's a party, Vanessa. Of course there are women's voices. I'll make it up to you when I get home. You can pick whatever you want. I took a deep breath, pushed open the stuffy closet door, and squeezed out a few words through gritted teeth. Today is March 7th, I said through gritted teeth. My birthday isn't until tomorrow, and the only thing I want is a divorce. Panic flashed in Sebastian's eyes. He quickly recovered, pulling Vivian out from behind him. Slap. A heavy hand landed on Vivian's face. He grabbed her by the neck, his face full of rage. Did you forget what I told you? Vanessa will always be my #1 priority. I looked at the winding scar on his back. It used to be a badge of love, but now it just made my eyes sting with tears. The lingering, intimate scent in the room felt like invisible hands choking the breath out of me. I tried to flee, but Sebastian grabbed me and dropped to his knees. Vanessa, I just lost my mind for a moment, but you're the only one I love. Please don't go. I swept a cold gaze around the room, taking in the roses scattered everywhere. My heart turned to ICE. It wasn't that Sebastian didn't understand romance. He just saved it for someone else. I slapped his hand away fiercely and demanded, you only love me, yet you won't spend a single holiday with me, saving yourself for her while I'm at home alone. What a unique kind of love. And carnations? For that old hag like me. Vivian finally snapped out of her daze, hastily pulling on Sebastian's shirt. She knelt down in front of me as well. Vanessa, I just love Seb too much. Take it all out on me. Please don't. The two of them knelt before me like a pair of star-crossed lovers. Fury surged within me. Before she could even finish her sentence, I raised my hand. But Sebastian, who had just been choking her, instinctively shielded Vivian. Panic flashed in his eyes, but he just hardened his gaze, his voice hoarse. Don't hurt her. She's just a kid. Behind him, Vivian flashed a provocative smile. My heart felt like it was being dragged to the bottom of the ocean by giant hands. I finally understood why Vivian dared to have me come to the hotel. Sebastian gave her a look, and Vivian left triumphantly, leaving just the two of us in the room. Sebastian hung his head in defeat. He blocked her number right then and there. I promise I'll cut ties with her. Just don't make trouble for her. She's just a poor student. He paused, squeezing my hand tightly as he stared at my stomach with deep affection. V, neither of us ever experienced family love. You can't let our baby be born without a complete family, can you? I froze on the spot. My gaze slowly dropped to my slightly swollen belly. My mom divorced my dad very early on, and my dad was always gambling and in debt, so I barely saw him. I grew up relying on the charity of neighbors just to eat. Sebastian was also raised by his grandmother. Ever since the day he saved me, he had me move into his home. If no one else will take care of you, I will. Sebastian, who used to be a slacker, started studying hard from that day on, going from the bottom of the class to the top of the grade in just one semester. We both got into Harvard University. On countless mornings when the sky turned pale, we only had each other to lean on, sharing a smile before diving back into our hard work. From having nothing to today, with Sinclair Corporation firmly establishing itself in Seattle. It wasn't until I found out I was pregnant that the two of us drifting souls finally felt like we had roots. Seeing my expression soften, Sebastian's eyes burned with intensity. Give me one more chance, okay? That night, I stared at my stomach for hours on end, eventually forcing a single syllable past the lump in my throat. Okay. From that day on, Sebastian was glued to my side almost 24 hours a day. A man who had never cared for anniversaries before. He even used the lame excuse of our 7th anniversary of graduating from Harvard University to shower me with gifts. He filled the house with endless bouquets of roses, yet the overwhelming fragrance of the roses only made me want to vomit. But an invisible wall had ultimately grown between us. Not to mention, when Sebastian's hands roamed over my body, a sudden wave of nausea forced me to push him away. Sebastian's eyes flashed with anger and embarrassment, yet carried a trace of relief and ease. Until a phone call came, and Sebastian looked at me, his eyes filled with profound disappointment. I told you she was just a poor student, and that it was over. Why did you have to go and bother her? I was completely baffled, but Sebastian just grabbed his coat and stormed right out the door. It wasn't until I checked the trending topics that I saw Sinclair Corporation's sponsored Student Fakes Poverty had climbed to the #1 spot. All the backlash was directed at Vivian. Someone had exposed that she didn't meet the criteria for financial aid. Suddenly, the internet was flooded with abuse aimed at Vivian, and some extremists even followed Vivian home. But Sebastian stepped up to clear her name, and someone even snapped photos of Sebastian coaxing Vivian home on a rainy night. I sat alone at home, calling Sebastian countless times, but there was no answer. It wasn't until the sky turned a pale dawn gray that he finally called back. His voice completely hoarse, yet laced with a strange sense of relief. I told you I was going to end things with her. You personally reviewed her application for your foundation back then, so how could there be any issues? Since you insisted on doing this, I have to take responsibility for her. I'll use my resources to look out for her, Sebastian. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to confront the bloody truth. Have you been waiting for this day all along? The other end of the line fell into a long silence. After a long while, he let out what sounded like a bitter laugh. For 2 whole months, you haven't let me touch you. I'm a man. I have needs. Why do you have to be so selfish? To the public and to our child, we are still a loving couple. The position of Mrs. Sinclair will always be yours. Just don't even think about divorce. Vanessa, you need to understand that the shares are firmly in my hands. Clenching my fists until my nails drew blood, from childhood sweethearts to now, we truly were the ones who understood each other best. I could never give up the company or my child. Because of preparing for pregnancy, I shifted my focus to the family. And now Sebastian called all the shots at the company. Sebastian's features were as handsome as ever, but it felt like I had never known him. My most vulnerable spots had become the weapons he used to control me. Almost the last trace of my love for Sebastian vanished into thin air. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing at this moment. Each one felt like a slap in the face. It was entirely Vivian's provocations. Didn't you win Mr. Sinclair's favor back then by playing the victim? Even today, this trick still works perfectly. Nessa, I am truly someone who knows how to repay kindness. You donated money to me, and my way of repaying you is to serve your husband well. How about it? I'm doing a pretty good job, aren't I? I looked at the screen, my eyes gradually growing moist. After Sebastian and I got the company on track, I set up a foundation to help children who were just like us. The first time I saw Vivian, the ambition and stubbornness in her eyes were exactly the same as mine and Sebastian's back then. I immediately chose to sponsor her. Watching her finish school and enter Sinclair Corporation, I just never expected that her ambition lay not only in the workplace, but also in stealing my life. It wasn't until the baby in my womb gave me a gentle kick that I snapped back to reality. In almost an instant, my rationality fully returned, and I paused the urge to send screenshots of Vivian's provocations to the reporters. For the sake of my child, I endured it all. After laying his cards on the table, Sebastian chose to let himself loose. Using the excuse that I had hurt Vivian, he started taking Vivian to major events, under the guise of introducing her to resources. For the sake of my child, I had long since stepped back from the front lines. The shrewd people in the company had already started calling Vivian Mrs. Sinclair. To train Vivian, Sebastian even handed over to Vivian the project I had secured back then by drinking myself sick to close deals. Even though she made many mistakes, Sebastian just laughed it off and chose to clean up her messes. Many people sent messages to advise me, "We've watched you and Sebastian make it to where you are today. You have a child now and you're the wife. Your place is secure, so don't let these little girls provoke you into fighting with Sebastian." Exactly, he's just having some fun. I see that little Vixen looks a lot like you. It's probably just because you're pregnant, that Sebastian. Once you deliver the baby, this woman will naturally get lost. I merely placed my phone aside coldly. While nurturing my pregnancy, I privately sought out a lawyer to prepare for divorce. Perhaps he was so immersed in his sweet romance that he couldn't extricate himself. Even when I privately contracted other shareholders, Sebastian remained completely oblivious. But Sebastian actually went from bad to worse, choosing to bring Vivian home. "Vanessa, you're pregnant. Sometimes I can't spare the time. With her living in our house, she can also help take care of you. I originally thought I would still be hysterical, but I was terrifyingly calm. My heart could no longer muster even the slightest ripple for Sebastian. It wasn't until I chose to have it out with Sebastian that I unexpectedly heard him bantering with a friend at the study door. Seb, that's brilliant. You actually managed to get Vanessa and Ms. Vance to coexist peacefully. How did you do it? So it wasn't in vain that you went out of your way to bring Vivian before Vanessa back then. Sebastian took a hard drag on his cigar, then let out a heavy sigh. Vanessa is getting old. I really can't bring myself to sleep with her anymore. But Vivian looks so much like a young Vanessa, and she's completely wild in bed. Naturally, I just don't understand why Vanessa is making such a fuss about it. We've been through life and death together. No one could ever threaten her position. Even though I had long lost any feelings for Sebastian, I couldn't stand steady despite using all my strength. I could only lean against the staircase. Gasping heavily for AIR.IT was actually Sebastian himself who had brought Vivian right in front of me. No wonder Vivian's situation had so perfectly met the Foundation's requirements back then. It turned out she was someone Sebastian had handpicked. Before I could recover my senses, a familiar voice rang out. Seb, I brought my mom home. I froze in place. Sebastian abruptly looked toward the door. Seeing my figure, his eyes darkened, and he lowered his voice to explain to me, she only has an elderly mother from the countryside. She mentioned it once, and her mother insisted on coming to the city to visit. In front of the old lady, just play along and keep up appearances. Without waiting for my reaction, Sebastian put on a full smile and, together with Vivian, linked arms with her mother. I could barely stay on my feet. I had no family left. Even at my wedding, I had to ask a senior in the industry to walk me down the aisle. I had never seen this side of Sebastian in front of an elder. So humble, so composed, truly a good son-in-law. But what I expected even less was that he would make me watch him and another woman play the part of a couple with my own eyes. Yet that woman was dressed gorgeously and behaved elegantly, not looking like she was from a poor family at all. The woman merely looked me up and down, then silently glanced at Vivian. Vivian looked to Sebastian for help, and in the next second, Sebastian spoke casually. This is a distant relative of my family. She's pregnant and staying with us for a few days. I only felt a wave of sheer ridiculousness in my heart. Married for 5 years, not only did I fail to secure my position as Mrs. Sinclair, but to outsiders, I had also become his family's relative. The woman and Vivian exchanged a smile, and the woman quietly pulled Vivian aside, using a voice just loud enough for me to hear. That's fine then, but you need to be careful. Sebastian is so outstanding. Even if she's a relative, you have to keep your guard up. A flash of awkwardness crossed Sebastian's eyes. He wanted to explain something to me, but the next second, a cold, sinking feeling hit my lower abdomen, and a warm rush between my legs made me break out in a cold sweat. Sebastian, help me. I need to go to the hospital. Sebastian hurriedly tried to check on my condition, but was stopped by Vivian. Her voice carried a teary tone. My mom is here. Don't make me lose face, okay? I know my actions are a bit out of line, but Nessa, could you please not fake it in front of my mom? If it's really that bad, let's just call our private doctor, all right? I was already in too much pain to speak, only biting my trembling lip and staring dead at Sebastian. Amidst a sea of despair, Sebastian's footsteps seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. A glint of triumph flashed in Vivian's eyes as she grabbed Sebastian. Sebastian, my mom just arrived in Seattle and wants to look around. Why don't you take her out? Sebastian simply let Vivian pull him away. My consciousness gradually faded, and in my final moment of clarity, I used my last breath to dial 911. Ms. Winslow. I'm sorry. The baby. We tried to call your husband, but his phone has been turned off. The nurse's face was full of apologies. I slowly looked down at my empty lower abdomen, closed my eyes, bit my trembling lip, and wept silently. My baby. He didn't even get the chance to take a single look at this world, all because his father didn't care. I didn't know how much time had passed. I had completely cried out my very last tear. Trembling, I pulled out my phone. Haven't you always been interested in Sinclair Corporation? I'll help you, but you have to set up my life in Lunaton. The person on the other end was so thrilled they practically jumped for joy. It would be my absolute honor. I steadied my nerves, pulled out the 4-drip, and chose to leave despite the nurse's protests. Sebastian was absent-mindedly accompanying Vivian and her mother as they shopped at the mall. A strange sense of unease lingered in his heart. So he called his assistant, specifically instructing him to bring a gift and check on me. Not long after, the assistant called back, stuttering, "Mr. Sinclair." I can't find Mrs. Sinclair." Sebastian's mind went completely blank. It took a long time before he could finally force the words out. What do you mean you can't find her?" The assistant's voice trembled. I checked the house and the hospitals Mrs. Sinclair usually goes to, but she's nowhere." Suddenly, another call broke through. It was Hunter Kent, a mutual friend of ours and the director of Kent Hospital. A sudden, inexplicable panic gripped Sebastian's heart. Driven by an unseen force, he answered the call. "Sebastian, your wife came to the Ho purchase, completed. The hospital called you, but you didn't answer." "Where the hell are you?" "Hospital." Sebastian was completely bewildered. He checked his phone, only to find countless missed calls. His phone had been manually switched to silent mode. His eyes darkened as he suddenly looked at Vivian standing not far away. Just now, she had used his phone to make a call, claiming hers had no signal, but before he could think deeper, Hunter's tone grew even sharper. "Are you with that kept woman?" "Sebastian, you keep a woman on the side, and our Vanessa was generous enough not to hold it against you while pregnant. Now Vanessa is missing, the baby is gone, and you still have the leisure to accompany the mistress. Have you forgotten the days when Vanessa fought by your side? Forgotten how you got that scar on your body?" The barrage of questions left Sebastian dizzy and disoriented. He abruptly hung up and called me, only to find that my phone was already turned off. For a moment, Sebastian's mind went completely blank. Vivian stumbled back a few steps, carefully tugging at Sebastian's sleeve, but Sebastian slapped her hand away fiercely. Sebastian couldn't care about anything else anymore and rushed toward the hospital like a madman, speeding all the way. Sebastian ran countless red lights, with only one wish in his heart, that Hunter was just playing a joke on him. But upon arriving at the hospital, his last shred of hope vanished into thin air. Yes, there was indeed a lady named Vanessa today, but she insisted on being discharged and we couldn't stop her. We also made countless calls to her husband, but he didn't answer. "Are him?" An uncontrollable voice echoed in his heart. He might really be losing me. His Adam's apple bobbed as he struggled to squeeze out a few words. Did she leave any message?" The nurse merely shook her head faintly. Sebastian lowered his head, veins bulging on his hands, his eyes terrifyingly dark, until a phone call brought his thoughts back. "Mr. Sinclair, where are you?" "Something happened at the company." Sebastian listened in silence as his assistant finished the report. His arch nemesis, Iris Hale, had actually walked into the office like he owned the place. He had even thrown down a share transfer agreement, claiming the company now belonged to him. But the intuition Sebastian had honed over years in the business world told him something was wrong. Without a word, he rushed back to the office. Slamming the door open, Sebastian saw Iris leaning back carelessly in the executive chair. "Where is my wife?" Sebastian grabbed Iris by the collar, the veins on his forehead bulging. "Where is Vanessa? There's no way you could have snapped up enough retail shares to take control. Tell me, where is she?" Iris dropped his smile, his gaze turning mocking as he fiercely slapped Sebastian's hand away. "So Mr. Sinclair actually knows he has a wife? Your wife and child are gone, yet you were out shopping with the mistress and her mother. What's the point of looking for Vanessa now?" He paused slightly, gesturing for his assistant to hand over an agreement. "You'd better step down early. Since you don't cherish Vanessa, let her go as soon as possible." The massive words "divorce agreement" on the document stung Sebastian's eyes. He violently tore the agreement to shreds. Iris just laughed recklessly. "It's just a copy. Tear it up all you want." Sebastian slumped defeatedly into the chair suddenly. A clamor erupted outside, and Vivian barged in recklessly with her mother. "Seb, you have to help me. My fake background has been exposed, and it's all over the internet. Everywhere." Sebastian froze. whipping his head to glare at Iris. Iris merely sneered. What? 1 second you're tearing up a divorce agreement, and the next you're caring about the mistress again? You're truly pathetic. This mistress of yours faked her background to begin with, and people aren't allowed to talk about it? Sebastian flushed red with embarrassment and anger. Vivian panicked. She rushed up and shook Sebastian's sleeve. Seb, please help me clear this up. The project in my hands is at a critical stage. I can't. Sebastian just brushed her hand away, his face full of exhaustion. Are the netizens wrong? Didn't you fake your identity? Don't worry about your project anymore. I'm the one cleaning up your messes anyway. Vivian stared at Sebastian in disbelief. Her mother looked even more indignant. How can you sleep with someone and then turn your back on them? My daughter was an unmarried maiden and you slept with her. What unmarried maiden? Sebastian roared, losing all patience. Did I or did I not tell her to stay away from Vanessa? Wasn't she the one who crossed the line time and time again? What now? Now that my wife and child are gone, you're still putting on an act for me here. You know exactly what you did with my phone, Vivian. The fact that I haven't called the police and treated you like a murderer is already more than you deserve. The veins on his forehead throbbed wildly as he issued his ultimatum to Vivian. Get the hell out. Don't ever let me see you again. Vivian's mother had never seen such a scene before and trembled with anger. Vivian bit her lip. She had never seen Sebastian so furious in front of her, so she simply tore off her mask. Why are you yelling at my mom? Yes, I crossed the line, but wasn't it you who allowed it? Weren't you the one who couldn't hold back and insisted on coming to me for 2 months? She looked at the shredded agreement on the floor, laughing so hard she doubled over. Do you really think you and Vanessa can go back to the way things were? You both hoped for that child for so long, and now it's gone. Do you honestly think she'll forgive you? Unable to hold back any longer, Sebastian grabbed Vivian by the throat. Her eyes nearly rolled to the back of her head. It was Iris who finally pried Sebastian and Vivian apart. Iris stared coldly at Sebastian, enunciating every single word. Is she wrong? Would any of this have happened today without your indulgence? Pack your bags and get ready to leave Sinclair Corporation. Just as I expected, Sebastian refused to sign the papers. I had no choice but to file for divorce. I arrived in Lunaton, where Iris was waiting. He provided me with a temporary sanctuary, a place where Sebastian's shadow couldn't reach me. As I watched Iris set down a glass of warm milk with honey, I couldn't help but smile bitterly. I'm afraid you're the only one who still remembers the past. I murmured. Iris and I had been classmates in college. He had been open about his feelings for me since our freshman year, but by then, I was already with Sebastian. He backed off gracefully, leaving only one sentence behind. If you ever have any problems in the future, come find me anytime. Unlike us, Iris was a second-generation heir. Every word of excellence could be used to describe him. After Sebastian and I succeeded in our startup, many people began to compare the two of them over time. Sebastian harbored deep rage toward Iris. My preference for drinking milk with honey was a habit I had picked up since college. Iris had merely observed it, yet kept it in his heart all this time. Iris smiled. You coming to me is indeed an unexpected joy. Don't worry, it's very safe here. You can do whatever you want. I'm only acquiring Sinclair Corporation shares on your behalf. Once you recover, you'll have to shoulder the burden yourself. When that time comes, I'll just be a leisurely shareholder collecting dividends, and you'll have to work hard for me. A warm prickle stung the back of my eyes. Today's Sinclair Corporation was no longer a small fry. Acquiring Sinclair Corporation's retail shares had cost Iris a lot of energy. Now, even excluding the shares Sebastian and I jointly owned, as long as Iris stood by my side, I would have the final say in the company. To make me accept his kindness. He was just joking around. I cleared the lump in my throat. Thank you. His gaze deepened as he leaned toward me. You know how I feel, but don't worry, I won't pressure you. I've waited all these years, I don't mind waiting a little longer. But Vanessa, just remember, I'm here. I slowly recovered in Lunaton, blocking out the outside noise. Almost 2 months later, I occasionally heard news about Sebastian. He had now been kicked out of the company's management by Iris. To win me back. He even personally posted an apology on social media. Seeing his news, I suddenly realized that I hadn't actively thought of him for a long time. It turned out that the once overwhelming feelings, when truly fading, unraveled as quietly as pulling silk. I knew it was time for me to go back and take over the company. The next board meeting, I sat in the main seat that had always been left empty. Meeting Sebastian's eyes, I just smiled faintly. "Mr. Sinclair, I hope you've been well." I knew Sebastian had been searching for me for a long time, but Iris had protected me too well. Sebastian couldn't find so much as a trace of me. The last thing he expected was for me to walk right into this board meeting. Throughout the entire meeting, his eyes were fixed solely on me. We hadn't seen each other in weeks. The once high, spirited Sebastian now had sunken cheeks and heavy bags under his eyes. After the meeting ended, Sebastian lingered until everyone else had left. I let out a soft sigh, knowing it was finally time to put an end to this relationship. Seeing that I intended to stay, a spark of light burst into his previously dull eyes. "Vanessa, how have you been lately? Are you doing well?" I smiled calmly. "Isn't Mr. Sinclair uninterested in that old hag like me? Why are you suddenly Russian now? Are you going to give me carnations again?" Sebastian flushed red and murmured softly, I apologize for what happened that day. I didn't mean it." He took a deep breath and dropped to his knees before me with a thud. "Vanessa, I never thought I would lose the baby, that I would lose you. I've completely cut ties with her. I'm begging you to give me one more chance." After that day, Sebastian completely cut off contact with Vivian. Vivian was kicked out of Sinclair Corporation, despised by everyone, and no one in the industry dared to hire her. She brought her mother to stage a sit-in at Sinclair Corporation, but they were kicked out by security and even sent to the police station. Defeated, the two even spent money to buy information on Sebastian's whereabouts. But Sebastian got hold of the evidence. Sebastian's lawyer took them straight to court. I looked at Sebastian coldly and sneered. "You've already used this trick. It won't work anymore. When you chose Vivian time and time again, we lost our future. Not to mention, there is now a living life standing between us." Sebastian's eyes were full of defeat. I thought there might be something wrong with the baby, but I took a chance, I thought. Thought what? I looked at Sebastian icily and mocked him. Thought I was putting on a show? Thought I would even use the baby as bait just to get your attention. "Sebastian, you know how much I looked forward to this baby. I'm not as cheap as you, choosing to cheat during my pregnancy and letting the mistress into our home. Sebastian, you don't deserve this baby, and you don't deserve me anymore." With every word I said, Sebastian's face grew paler until all the color drained away. I let out a long breath and gave Sebastian an ultimatum. "If Mr. Sinclair has nothing else, please leave. We'll just wait for the divorce proceedings." Seeing that I was kicking him out, the veins on the back of Sebastian's hands bulged. Before I lost my patience completely, he let out a soft sigh. Is it because you have Iris by your side now?" I slowly turned around. Meeting Sebastian's eyes, a sense of relief unexpectedly rose in my heart. It turned out that Sebastian not only disrespected me, but he didn't even respect my feelings. I even started to feel grateful to Vivian. Grateful that she made me see clearly what kind of person Sebastian really was. Seeing me turn back, Sebastian wore a look of "I knew it," his face filled with grief. "Why?" "I've corrected my mistakes, so why are you still using Iris to punish me? Back then, risked my life to save yours, punish." It was as if I had just heard the biggest joke in the world. Don't flatter yourself. Do you think everyone is like you, dragging others down just because you cheated? Besides, my feelings for you died a long time ago. Where does this talk of punishment even come from? I stepped closer to him and pointed at my own stomach. "You risked your life to save me back then?" "True, but I've already paid you back with my own life. Sebastian, we are even now. Let's go our separate ways and live our own lives." With that, I completely lost my patience and called security to forcefully drag Sebastian away. 2 months later, the divorce proceedings between Sebastian and me were finally finalized. On the eve of the final hearing, I found Sebastian at the company after he had been missing for weeks. Under the pouring rain, he stood stubbornly downstairs, his eyes fixed on my office window. I didn't want to pay him any mind, but 3 hours later, he remained motionless. Sebastian had always obsessed over his appearance, but now mud stained his expensive trousers. On his face, it was impossible to tell his tears from the rain. I let out a soft sigh, opened an umbrella, and walked straight up to him. Raindrops pattered down from his head, sliding right into his chest, even though his lips were pale and trembling. Sebastian's face lit up with joy when he saw me. I came today just to make one last attempt to save our marriage. Like presenting a treasure, he pulled a document from his coat. From the day I saved you, I decided to spend my whole life with you. This is an agreement. Leave with nothing. If I ever make a mistake again, I'll walk away empty-handed. Will you give me one more chance? No, I refused him flatly. You were already going to leave with nothing anyway, weren't you? I looked at him calmly, letting him search my eyes for any trace of insincerity, but all that greeted him was disappointment. Suddenly, a shrill voice pierced the air. Vanessa, go to hell. Appearing out of nowhere, Vivian lunged at me with a sharp knife in hand. Sebastian instinctively stepped in front of me. The sharp blade plunged into Sebastian's abdomen. Vivian screamed like a madwoman, repeatedly stabbing the knife in and out. Her face twisted with pure malice. You just had to save her. Then you can die too. Why did you give me hope only to leave me in despair? Sebastian merely gripped her shoulders tightly, yet his eyes looked at me with tender gentleness. Reading his lips, I knew what he was saying. As long as you're okay. I stood frozen, my mind flashing back to that sticky summer when he saved me for the very first time. The young Sebastian had also stood in front of me without a moment's hesitation. Now, after all this time, he still made the exact same choice. But things between us could never go back to the way they were. It wasn't until the wail of police sirens pulled me back to reality. Sebastian never woke up. Vivian was locked away for life. When the white sheet was pulled over Sebastian, an overwhelming wave of sorrow surged from the bottom of my heart. Sebastian, let's never meet again in our next lives. Half a year later, Iris and I chose to get married. At the wedding, Iris stood on the stage. As nervous yet excited as a young boy. He clutched a crumpled piece of paper in his hand. His wedding vows that he had revised over and over, rehearsing them countless times, but when it came time to say them. He still stumbled over his words, ultimately reducing them to a single sentence. Vanessa, I finally married you. I smiled and kissed him, knowing that my hapsis was right here beside me. The end. Tell us about your experience in comments below. If you want specific story to write it title below. Make sure to like and subscribe Bunny Bookery Tales.